Good day, fellow South Africans and citizens of the world.
I've been looking around for salvation. I've been looking around for the truth. All around me I see frustration, and I looked all over till I found you. I sit and listen to your stories, and you're telling me, please don't worry. There's a lot in this world you should know, and love in life is where you should go. If you're looking for somewhere to go, if you're looking for someone to know, if you're looking for someone to guide you, then love in life will guide you.
Koinant, good evening, fellow South Africans and citizens of the world. Well, tonight we've got a very, very different subject to discuss, and it's going to be a really, really interesting one, I feel. But before we get there, something quite extraordinary happened in Johannesburg late this afternoon. And what you're going to see is a result of a huge explosion under one of the main streets in Johannesburg, Breer Street. And I'll play you this video clip that's just come to hand. Here we go. Now, one of my fondest memories of my childhood was that occasionally, probably about twice a year in the evening, Dad would put up a big white sheet on the wall, bring out his projector, and then show slides of things that he had done in the past. Tonight, Cuan Elgin, who we know well, we've had a few live streams with Cuan. He's, like me, a historian. He joins me, and we enjoy photos that he took on his extensive trip around South Africa, and that took place just a few weeks ago. And I will also share photos of my trip around South Africa back in September 2011. Both our trips were about 5,000 kilometers. I'm going to show you a map so you can see where Cuan's trip took him to. Here we go, let's go and have a look at that. So he starts in Cape Town, he goes up the east coast of South Africa as far as Durban, and then he heads up into Gauteng, and then across to the northwest, and then back through into the Western Cape. And during that period he also visited Arania. So that's the discussion tonight, and without any further ado, I will get Cuan on. Give me a second. Right, here we go. Just got to sort a couple of little things out here before I actually get him on. If you saw my computer screen, you'd know what a chamors it is at the moment. So much stuff on it. Anyway, all right, here comes Cuan. Hi, Cuan.
Good evening, Scott, from
Hi.
a rather wintry South Africa. How are you?
Good, mate. Good. Excellent. Now, we're going to be talking about your trip, your recent trip around South Africa. And I've just shown people a map of South Africa. And what I'm going to do, just to kick off, is I'm going to share with you the screen that I'll be showing to everybody with the photos on, so we're all on the same page. But before I do that, tell me what inspired your trip right around South Africa.
Well, Scott, it's 17 years since I last did such an extensive trip. That one was 25,000 kilometers. It was actually my wife and I's honeymoon. We've been married 17 years this month, actually. And we did most of Southern Africa then, camping a lot of the way.
Yeah.
And my wife hadn't seen nearly as much of South Africa as I had, so I took her to all my favorite places. Took us 6 months, and then we settled down for a while in the Karoo. We had another place in Hermanus, where I am now, and we moved back here to Hermanus about 8 years ago. So it's 17 years, so I thought it was time. And after that trip 17 years ago, I wrote Bulala, my first internationally published book, with a lot of my impressions in there. And I thought it was important to record our history because I saw how quickly it was disappearing. So it was time to do it again. And that's what we did this time, 5,000 Ks over 3 weeks. So quite a lightning trip, and covered 6 of the 9 provinces. So we got a pretty good overview.
Right. Now, as a historian, I guess that you would, like me, be absolutely appalled at what's happening to the museums of South Africa, generally.
Yeah, we didn't have a time to go to many, as you can imagine, but we did manage a few. And the real shocker was Grahamstown, 1820 settler country. And just, 3 years ago was the 200th anniversary of the 1820 settlers, the British settlers, who've contributed hugely to South Africa. There was hardly a murmur on the 200th anniversary, which was, probably not surprising, settler being a bit of a dirty word now. But we went there this time. Grahamstown itself was a bit of a shocker. I know it fairly well, having done some studying there at Rhodes over various periods in the past. And the town itself is looking rather shabby, but the shocker was the 1820 settler memorial building, which is a massive building overlooking Grahamstown. It's probably the biggest building in Grahamstown, and we went there expecting to see what you would normally see, the clothing, the weapons, the history, the implements, etc. of the 1820 settlers. Well, there was absolutely nothing of that in there. It has been cleaned out completely. It's a shell, and decorating the walls are rather poor African artworks mourning colonial oppression. There's absolutely no sign of the 1820 settlers at all. It's as though they never existed. So that was a real shocker, yes.
Just from a historical perspective, what I think people need to understand is that when the first white settlers came up to Grahamstown, the Xhosa hadn't even crossed the Great Fish River. They were on the other side. They hadn't even come to Grahamstown. So the first people who really permanently settled Grahamstown were the whites, and that was the whole idea of the museum, wasn't it?
Indeed. The 1820 settlers, as you well know, came in almost to create a buffer between the marauding Xhosa tribes on the other side of the Great Fish River and the Cape, which was then, of course, under British control. And the Zuurveld, as it was known, the Sauerveld, which is actually pretty good grazing generally, considered amongst the best dairy country in South Africa. They formed a small barrier, you could say, and there were already Boers there who'd moved up from the Cape.
Right.
And together they fought off the marauding Xhosa who were raiding their cattle. But, it's amazing how history has been distorted. If you go onto some of the so-called official South African history sites now, I picked up one the other day. There was that story, famous and infamous, of Nonkwazi, the great cattle killing delusion, where she managed to convince people to basically commit national suicide, the Xhosa, by killing all their cattle and eating them all. And she convinced her people, and she was just a young girl who'd seen this vision in a pool that her ancestors told her that the white settlers would be driven into the sea by great winds and leaving all their cattle and grain stores for the Xhosa, etc. Well, of course, that never happened. The fateful day came, the sun rose, it was supposed to set immediately according to her prophecy, but it didn't. It continued in the heavens to the west as it has since creation. And the Xhosa tribe realized they were staring starvation in the face. And over the next 6 months or so, about 80,000, the very large portion of their tribe died. They'd killed something like 200,000 of their own cattle and feasted right through the winter, didn't bother to plant crops, etc. But on the South African history site, it said that it is suspected that the settlers fooled Nonkwazi into, calls coming in, fooled Nonkwazi into telling her people to basically commit national suicide by white settlers disguised as her ancestors. Well, that's a real new one for me. Yes. And that's on an official South African history site. And it goes on to say that the Xhosa suffered continuous cattle raids by the settlers. So our history has been turned around 180 degrees on some sites, and confirmation of it, of course, was seeing the 1820 Settler Museum, which is now a shell. No sign of the 1820 settlers, as though they didn't exist.
Well, the greatest wake-up call for me was the Kuruman Mission Museum. That's where Dr. Livingstone stayed and Robert Moffat stayed. Beautiful, beautiful location. That's where Dr. Livingstone proposed to Mary Moffat underneath a little almond tree there, which you can still see today. And it's now been taken over by an African curator. And things which I went there in 2006 and 2007 when there was a white curator, and everything was perfect. But now, not only do no one patrol to make sure things aren't stolen, but even the locked cabinets, there's one particular half-crown that Dr. Livingstone carried with him everywhere. It was given to him by his father. And that used to be in one of his locked cabinets, and it's gone. All that's left now is just the actual... It's actually got the tag saying, this is the coin that Dr. Atherton wore or carried the whole time. And then there's an empty case. The coin's gone. I mean, this is...
That doesn't surprise me, Scott.
Yeah.
You know, Groote Schuur, the official residence of the president in South Africa, in Cape Town, donated to the nation by Cecil Rhodes. Apparently, there was a beautiful gold leaf tea set there presented by Queen Victoria. That disappeared, and the grand piano was last seen being trundled down the drive by 4 gentlemen in blue overalls, never to be seen again.
Wow.
So, we can laugh, but it's a tragedy. Yeah.
Well, for people living in Pretoria, here's something you can do. There's Paul Kruger's house in Pretoria, and it's
I've been.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, when I went there in 2006, again there was a white curator, and there were a couple of people who sort of just wandered around inside to make sure nothing went missing. Because it was a very open... Well, you've been there. You know what it's like. Yeah. You've got all the tables laid out with all the cutlery and stuff like that. When I went there in 2011, I could see that some of the cutlery had been stolen. And I reckon it was just stolen by people reaching over the rail and putting it in their pocket.
That is a shock.
Yeah, it's just shocking what's going on. But talking about it, I think the best museum in South Africa today is the Voortrekker Museum. I mean, that is beautifully maintained.
It is lovely. You know, I've been there a couple of times. It's always worth it. It has a magnificent view over Pretoria, of course, And surprisingly, the greatest number of foreign visitors who go there are Chinese and Japanese.
Isn't
Strangely,
that
they
interesting?
absolutely love it. And when we did our Day of the Vow or Covenant Day memorial service, which we do every year now in Him Honest, we've done it for the last 4 or 5 years on a wine farm here. It's getting pretty well attended nowadays. We had a young man there who came down, especially from Pretoria, who's a guide at the monument, and he knows a lot about it, and he gave us a very interesting lecture.
Yeah.
And I learned something which I didn't know. There's a little red light blinking on the roof of the monument. One assumes it's merely for airplane hazard warning, but in fact it's blinking out in Morse code. Ons vir jou Suid-Afrika. We are for you, South Africa.
Oh,
So I learned
wow. Isn't that interesting?
yeah, it's a lovely monument. It really
Yeah.
is.
All right. Now, what we're going to do is you can see the first photo, Kuan.
Yes.
I'm going to put that on the screen for everybody. Now, that's obviously the vehicle that you drove around South Africa in.
Correct. I put this picture on my Facebook page, and I immediately got somebody asking, "Where's the kitchen sink?" So, somewhere amongst the camping gear. But I have to tell you, I assume my wife will watch a recording of this, but I'll tell you now, my wife loves the idea of camping and roughing it, but the reality is something a little bit different. So if you see the stuff on the roof, that's mainly my fishing tackle, my spear gun and snorkeling gear, etc. Well, all that did was go for a joyride, a 5,000 k joyride around the country. It never came off the roof.
Wow.
But we had to take her boogie board, of course, which you can see there. But we were pretty well kitted out. I've got a trailer, a camping trailer, but I thought, this is going to be a lightning trip, whirlwind. So the trailer does restrict you somewhat, and we were going to do a fair bit of off-roading. So I fashioned this rack, and it fits on the tow bar, and it worked pretty well. And on top of it is our tea and coffee making outfit in the small box. So we could screech to a halt next to the road, whip it out, cook up some hot water and have some coffee. So we had, in terms of traveling, a reasonably comfortable trip, yeah.
And is that a rental car?
No, that's our vehicle, yeah.
Oh, okay. Because when I go there, I go in a little rental car, about half the
Yes.
size of that thing.
Well, they're apparently a lot tougher rental cars.
Yeah,
they
they have to be.
overrock things.
All right. Now, with these photos that follow, just so everybody watching understands, they're not in any particular order. In other words, they're not sort of showing the first photo, the first places Kuan went to. They're basically scattered because there are quite a large number of them. But Kuan will tell us exactly the background to each one. Okay, are we ready to go?
Sure thing. Let's go.
Okay, let's go to the first photo. Wow.
All right. That is way up on a wind-blown hill. This was a midwinter tour, of course, so
Yeah.
temperatures were low. It is dedicated to Thomas Bain, and it overlooks basically the entrance to the Eastern Cape from the Western Cape, and it's marked out quite nicely. It's just next to the road. Most people don't know it's there. We just happened to notice it. But Thomas Bain, of course, built a lot of our mountain passes and magnificently. And he virtually always came in ahead of schedule and under budget, which is unheard of these days. But a little anecdote, I was taking a group of tourists once through one of the magnificent mountain passes. I don't recall which one exactly. We have so many. But an American lady tourist asked me, "Was this pass built by the slaves?" And I said, "No, ma'am. Why would you think that? It was built by a road engineer, Thomas Bain, and he used paid labor. Why would you think that?" So she said, "Well, wasn't South Africa built by the slaves?" Oh, so I had to give a little history lesson and say, "Ma'am, slavery was abolished in South Africa 30 years before it was abolished in the United States. No South African has ever been enslaved. They were brought in by the Portuguese and then the Dutch and the English. And abolished in 1834. So no, South Africa was built by labor, paid labor. So this is the impression, unfortunately, many foreigners have of South Africa, that it was built on the sweat of slaves being whipped by their cruel slave masters. But no, that's not the case.
Right.
So, yeah.
Sorry, I'm just fighting with my computer at the moment. I'm trying to get you nicely settled so we can get you on at the same time. That's better. Okay,
But to
that's
give you a rough idea of the route, it's basically up the east coast from Hermanus, which is just
right.
north of Cape Town, into the Eastern Cape, through the Eastern Cape into KwaZulu-Natal. Some time we spent in Durban seeing relatives and friends, some I hadn't seen for 50 years, literally. And that was quite a surprise. Fresh-faced teenagers now, little old men and little old grannies. I'm sure they're the same with me. And then from up country to Gauteng, sometime there, then into the Northern Cape, and then back down to the Western Cape. So 5,000 k's almost on the dot.
Wow. Well, there you go. Because my trip in 2011 was about 4,500 kilometers.
Right.
Let's go to the next photo.
Okay, that is Grahamstown. That's yours truly standing proudly there. That is all that is left of the 1820 settler memorial. The huge big building, which is alongside, is, as I say, a shell now with devoted to colonial trauma. This is all that's left. I hope that will not disappear one day, but it's a rather nice statue of a settler, his wife, and a little girl. In the rather unkept gardens, and that is about it. And there's no plaque on it, or if there was, it's gone. But that is basically it in terms of the 1820 settlers who, as I mentioned, made a huge contribution to South Africa. It's as though they never existed. That's all that's left.
Now, do they still have the cannons looking over Grahamstown?
I didn't see them, Scott.
Oh, you mean they've gone as well? Oh, my gosh.
Probably. Grahamstown, of course, has always been a very liberal town,
Yeah.
with Rhodes University there. But it's the character has changed a lot. We stayed the night just out of town on a friend of ours' farm. He is an 1820 settler descendant, and the farm he's staying on and the house date back to those days. And he filled us in pretty much on the history of the Albany district, as it's called.
Yeah.
And it's a shame because the whole area, the names of the families are still the same as the 1820 settlers. They pretty much developed that entire area and the Eastern Cape, or Port Elizabeth, etc., which is now, I can't even pronounce the name. Can you pronounce it? The new name of Port Elizabeth?
Kwekwe or something like that. No, I can't.
No, and nobody can tell me what it means either.
I know a little bit about that. It's actually a Griqua word, or not. Sorry,
Yes.
a Khoi word. It's a Khoi word, and it means something to do with the vegetation or something like that. But I can't. I'm not exactly sure. I think that's what it means.
I've been told also that it's Khoi or Griqua, and that it means something about vegetation. But that's pretty much it, as I say. For which, and I mean, Port Elizabeth wasn't named after Queen Elizabeth, previous or the last one. So there's no colonial direct attachment. It was named after Sir Ruthven Donkin's beloved wife, Elizabeth, who died in Egypt, and he brought her heart back with him and built a little pyramid there, and her heart is incarcerated in there, as far as I know. So it was named after the lost love of an official. It's rather a shame that Kekayabach, I think it's how it's pronounced.
Yeah.
It's anyway. So they're going to have to change all the maps, etc. Whatever.
Well, if you look at Ladysmith in KZN, that was named after Sir Harry Smith's wife.
Correct.
You've got Harry Smith as well. Yeah.
A much loved lady. I did my army basics there, funnily enough. Infantry basics, Smith. Yes.
Yeah. All right. Let's have a look at the next photo. Oh, that's the same.
Okay, that one. You can see the gardens are not terribly well kept. That is all that remains of the 1820 settlers, is that statue. Everything else has disappeared.
That is so sad. Okay, where's that?
That is Cape St. Francis, not the greatest shot, I will admit. I don't know. My wife.
Who's the good-looking guy in the photo, Cuan?
That's yours truly. That was our first sort of main stop. I might mention Cape St. Francis. I've been wanting to go there for a while because it looks absolutely gorgeous on the aerial shots. It's got the marinas and the lovely houses, although a lot of them burnt down just a couple of years ago. There was a massive wildfire that swept right through especially the thatched houses. Anyway, they've rebuilt it, and they're mainly slate roofs now. So I wanted to have a look, but the sad part is that it's still okay, say Cape St. Francis, but the sad part is the nearest town, Humansdorp. It is awful, absolutely awful. It's about 30 k's away. That's the nearest town. The surprising thing is, Scott, the national roads are still good, excellent, in fact.
Yeah.
The provincial roads are so-so. The country roads are trash. They haven't been maintained at all. But the worst of all are the town roads, the little towns that we went through in the Eastern Cape, especially, and parts of KwaZulu. The town roads are absolutely trash. They're full of potholes, massive ones, and all they do is put a hazard cone next to it. You can see it's been there for years. It's sunburnt, and they just drive around these holes. They seem quite happy to do that. It's amazing. But national roads, I'm pleased to say, still very good.
Yeah. Well, there's that game that you used to play. I think it was called Pokemon or something like that on the computer screen. And I don't know if you've seen the videos of people, dodging around the potholes, and they play the Pokemon music while they're doing that.
Yeah, that's not the best shot, but that's Cape St. Francis. It's supposed to have a lighthouse in the background. Maybe there's another picture. I know the picture's a bit chaotic, and there's a lot of them, so we'll just take potluck as we go.
Absolutely. Okay, there you are. I think that's the one you're talking about.
Okay. Yeah, that's Cape St. Francis. Look, our coast is magnificent. There's no question that hasn't been ruined. It's almost impossible to ruin it because a lot of it is totally undeveloped. So if you like, exploring the coast, you like fishing or just sightseeing, our coast is absolutely magnificent all the way from Cape Town, all the way to Durban and right up to St. Lucia. Absolutely magnificent. So I would never discourage tourists. They say for every tourist, 8 jobs are created, so I would encourage them to come and hire the little cars. You can see the one in the background there, classic tourist hire car, the little one on the right.
Yeah, that's the sort of one that I had.
Yeah, that's the classic one. The traffic cops see those ones coming, and they pull them over and elicit a bribe very often.
Bribe time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they can see them coming. But the tourism aspect is still there, I'm glad to say. And South Africa is very cheap now, of course, for foreigners because our rand is, basically worth nothing. So everything seems to be half price for foreign tourists. The food, the wine, the accommodation, they absolutely love it. For South Africans, of course, it's not that cheap. And in fact, you can budget on about 2,500 to 3,000 rand a day. If you take your fuel, not the cost of your hire car. If you're using your own car, your fuel is going to cost you, and your basic accommodation, comfortable, clean, nothing fancy, it's going to cost you 2,500 to 3,000 rand a day. That's what it worked out for us. So work that out over a month. It all adds up.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go to the next photo. Oh wow, isn't that stunning?
That is Cape St. Francis too, yeah, and there's hundreds of kilometers of pristine coast just like that, unspoilt, absolutely beautiful, even in winter, as long as it's a sunny day. That was the interesting thing. The weather was absolutely atrocious when we left the Western Cape, and it brightened up as soon as we left and got into the Eastern Cape, and it was very pleasant. And we were keeping up to date on our WhatsApps from our community groups in Hermanus, and they had 3 weeks virtually of solid rain, gale force winds, we missed all that, and 3 days of no power. There was the pylons were blown over, so we missed all that, and we had actually excellent weather. And South Africa, of course, is like that. You can be pretty sure that most of the time the weather's going to be pretty good, except in the Cape, of course. But even there, we do have sometimes a week of absolutely beautiful weather in the middle of winter, and pleasant temperatures. But the trip generally, once we got out the Western Cape, the weather was great.
There's something that just dawned on me. I mean, look, it's pretty obvious, but it just dawned on me, and that is that everything that is natural and from nature in South Africa is absolutely stunning. It's only when this bloody ANC government came in and took over the running of the country, anything that's been developed by man today in South Africa, apart from a few exceptions, is basically cactus, completely cactus.
Well, it's sadly true. Western Cape, of course, is almost like a different world, and we were
Yeah.
reminded of that when we drove back in after 3 weeks. The roads immediately are better.
Yeah.
The place is cleaner. It kind of works. So there's a big, strong movement, a groundswell of the Western Cape wanting to secede from the rest of the country. Obviously, that's not a popular idea with the rest of the country or the government. But there's quite a strong push for that because things are different in the Western Cape, and the people, the majority, it seems like, don't want to be ruled from Pretoria. And I think 78% of the taxes that go from the Western Cape to the Pretoria are never seen again. So, there is that movement. It would be a shame that we can't hold the country together, but there's definitely a sentiment in the Western Cape that they want to be autonomous.
Yeah. Well, one of my co-presenters, that's Kalane. His name is Skid Marks on YouTube. And
yes, I watch the show now and again, yes.
Yeah, he comes up with some really interesting videos, and he's suggesting that the king of the Zulu should secede from South Africa. He should just say, I own this piece of land. I've forgotten the name of the trustee. You probably
Ingonyama Trust.
Ingonyama Trust, yeah, which owns a huge tract of land in KZN. And what Kalane is suggesting is that they should just secede, say this is our land, piss off.
Well, the Freedom Front, of course, which I'm a member of,
yes.
Has been one of the motivating factors for this coalition, which to take on the ANC next year in the general election. And our chief whip and deputy leader, Corne Mulder, Dr. Corne Mulder, is Doctor of Constitutional Law. So he's just the right guy. He's holding it all together. And it's become very apparent that in Inkatha, the Zulu traditional party, is the most reliable member of the coalition, other than ourselves, of course, Freedom Front.
Yeah.
They proved to be very reliable and consistent. And the Zulus are, kind of conservative people in a sense. So they're forming a strong partner in this coalition.
Yeah, look, I think the Zulu people, amongst the various tribes, are the ones who have their act most together because they keep their culture. They've got a king, correct. They've got princes, they do their traditional stuff, and I think that's what really bonds them.
Yeah, they've got a pride in their culture. They certainly have, and we share that with them. The Afrikaner Boer.
Oh, absolutely.
I think we have much in common and a kind of almost a grudging respect from our past history.
Yeah. All right, let's have a look at the next photo. Oh, I just skipped one.
All right.
There we are.
That one is a bit of a horror show. That was what we would have driven into, heading out of Umhlanga Rocks, which I'll speak a little bit about. We were going to go and have a look at Mount Edgecombe. I did in my army days in the 70s into the 80s. We used to do a lot of field exercises and war games and so on in that area. And I thought I'd just take a spin up to see how it's developed. And that is what was across the road, the highway ahead of us. So, of course, we did a U-turn. Fortunately, 4x4, we managed to bounce around over the ditch in the middle and head back the other way. But it was a protest. I've no idea what it was for. But you see those all over South Africa now, as you well know, and for some time, burning tires, people throwing rocks at cars, etc. So, fortunately, we were able to turn back well in time. But that is a real hazard. We were fortunate. Most of the time, the troubles were behind us, not in front of us. But that one was in front of us.
But Umhlanga Rocks is very close to Durban, isn't it?
It is. It's just a 20-minute drive out. It's looking really good, I must say.
It's a beautiful area, very upmarket.
It is. It's become. It always has been upmarket. It is exceptionally so now. The average car there is like a Lamborghini or a Porsche or a Maserati. It's looking quite magnificent, I must say. It's one of the few towns which have improved, if you like that sort of thing. But Umhlanga Rocks is still looking good. Yes.
But it was also devastated by the floods. I think it was last year or the year before, where there were whole swaths of the hills that basically fell down and took houses out and stuff like that. I remember that.
Yeah, and a little bit further up, Umhloti and places like that. They really got hammered. Yeah. But Umhlanga's looking good.
Okay, let's have a look at the next photo.
We're back at Cape St. Francis again. So yes, random shots here. No particular order, so we can move on.
Okay, so I'll go to the next one.
Okay, now we've leapt ahead about 4,000 k's. Never mind. That's all relevant. This is the homeward bound trip. This is heading for Orania. This is Northern Cape, between Kimberley and Orania. As you can see, the road goes on for miles and miles, and it's pretty much the start of the Kalahari. Pretty, sort of desolate, but beautiful in its own way. And Orania is in the way distance, probably another 80 k's or 100 k's from there. But a pretty good road. And as you can see, that is a provincial road, not a national road, provincial road. Most of them were still well maintained, I'm pleased to say. But once you turned off that sort of road onto a country road as such, it was Swiss cheese, and you did it at your own risk. You could easily damage a tire or your car, etc. But that was a good road heading for Orania.
Well, that's a classic photo for South Africa, because these straight roads that go for miles and miles and miles, and they're just dead straight. And as you say, the other thing that's striking there is the quality of that road. It's fantastic.
Excellent.
Yeah. All right, let's have a look at the next photo. Oh, here's a beautiful lady.
My lousy photography. That's Eastern Cape, Sintsa. I used to call it Sintsa. It's on the map now as Chintsa with a H, but not the best shot. But that's my dear wife, and we're having a little picnic there.
Oh, lovely.
That is sushi, by the way, sushi and champers. But the nearest town there is Ganubi, just north of East London. And Ganubi also looks still pretty good. The road's a little bit scruffy. Everything's a bit scruffy, but still very nice. There are enclaves where there are mainly gated estates now, which seem to be surviving amongst all the chaos in South Africa. And they keep pretty tight security. They don't take nonsense. And Chinsa is one of them. It's essentially one or two biggish gated estates, pretty much upmarket. And the beaches are magnificent. And there are areas, but the road to it is horrible. But once you get there, it's all good. So Chinsa, or Sinsa, as we knew it, I went to school. I started high school in East London many years ago, the first couple of years of high school, so I knew it well. And East London was a bit of a shocker, I must say, now called Buffalo City. It's not a bad name, I suppose. And it's not East London, only just. But it's looking rather scruffy, and the town was jam-packed with taxis, with blaring hooters. It's the only place I saw that. It was like India, where I spent some time. Just blaring hooters and jam-packed with taxis. East London looks rather different to what I remember it. But once you're out of East London, Ganubi's still good. Yeah. And as you work way up the coast, still some very nice enclaves.
Well, there's another really, really special spot near Plettenberg Bay, actually, and you just go towards Cape Town about 30 kilometers. You've got those twin heads, you know the place I'm talking about?
Absolutely.
And there's this road you take just after you go through the town of Twin Heads, and you turn to your right towards the sea. And it's a beach called Nutsi. Have you heard of Nutsi Beach?
Yes, I know it well. I've been there. There's an old stone castle there.
Oh, there's several.
Yes, several.
Yeah. Oh, and you know that huge mansion that you see just before you get to the castles? That's owned by the Rothschilds.
Oh, yes.
And it's got like this huge piece of estate around it with these big fences and
Well, Knysna, I'm hoping that amongst all the photographs there, you can find one of Knysna. We did stop over there. I love Knysna.
Oh, it's beautiful.
We keep a boat up that way, and it's always a place we can get to basically in the morning. It's only 4 hours from Hermanus. So for a weekend, it's great to shoot up there, and it is, to me, the most magnificent lagoon in South Africa, I think by a long shot. The heads, as you say, where the ships, smaller ships used to come in and then bring the lumber. I did a book launch there, actually, my latest book, Return to the Covenant, at the Turbine Hotel on Teeson Island. They've turned the old power station into a 5-star hotel on Teeson Island.
Wow.
And that old power station used to run on the wood chippings from the wood industry there, the forestry and logging. And a lot of locals are saying, well, can't we fire it up again? Because as I speak to you, we've got load shedding again. So I'm sitting here with an inverter running, etc., and that is the case. But incidentally, we noticed that there was a lot less load shedding or blackouts, which is the real word, in the Eastern Cape and Natal than there were in the Western Cape. Yeah, it's regular 3 times a day. Well, the times change, but it's virtually always 3 times a day, which is very inconvenient and disruptive.
Yeah.
But we hardly noticed in the Eastern Cape maybe once a day. Natal was the same. So the Western Cape seems to be getting hammered with these load shedding breaks, which is surprising because we've got the only nuclear power station.
Which doesn't work.
Well, at the moment, I think it's undergoing repair. I think they've fired up one of the 2 reactors, but yeah, there was a lot less load shedding in the rest of the country. We noticed that.
You know what, Cuan? If you don't laugh, you cry. So you might as well laugh when we talk about shit like that. All right, let's have a look at the next photo. Right, where's that?
That's not what you think it is. That is actually a model. Sneaked in there somewhere. One of the people, I'm very pleased to say, and I hope there's going to be a link to a podcast of this interview, because my old schoolmaster, Frank Graham, Master Frankels, he was known as, he spent his retirement years playing with his train set, that's just one little corner of it. It is massive.
Joking? Wow, that's huge.
2 flats in Durban. Well, he stays one opposite the other, and he lives in the one, and his train set's in the other. And that's a night scene on one. It's absolutely magnificent. But he's a lovely man. He coached me for all kinds of things at school, debating society, this, that, and the other. So it was lovely to see him. He's getting on, as you can imagine, but still got all these marbles. And we spent a lovely time together. And I managed to read him. His eyesight is failing now, but I managed to read him a chapter from my latest book, Return to the Covenant, on our Irish connection. And he loves, he's a voice artist. In his day, he did a lot of the recordings for Men from the Ministry and Navy Lark and that on SABC. He used to organize us school kids tickets to the recordings, and he can put on the perfect Irish accents. So I had to leave some of the storytelling to him. But that's sneaked in there somewhere, yeah.
Yeah, I remember the Men from the Ministry.
Yes,
all right,
great stuff.
Let's have a look at the next one.
Okay, that's the Sunken Gardens, or the amphitheatre as it's known in Durban. We can spin through these shots very quickly if you like, Scott, because there's a lot of them. But this is an interesting place, and it's not looking wonderful, but it's not looking too bad. It
looks okay.
Yeah, it was built in the early 1930s. Now, interesting story to it. This was during the Great Depression, or towards the tail end.
Yeah.
There was absolutely no work. And the Durban City Council decided that they would offer manual labor at minimum wage to professionals only. There were a lot of engineers, a lot of qualified professionals, doctors, lawyers, who really were struggling, and they offered this work only to them. So you had to present your credentials if you were a professional in some kind of recognized profession, then they took you on. And this was built by hand by these gentlemen, pushing wheelbarrows, using picks and shovels, carting rocks around, and they did a magnificent job. And it's actually, part of it is below sea level. It's called Sunken Gardens, on the Esplanade in Durban. And Durban, to my surprise, is not looking too bad, at least the Esplanade, although the kilometre of joyrides and so on, which have been there since long before I was a child, and we used to go to them regularly in my days as a very young person, that's closed down, unfortunately, just recently, after many lifetimes. That's now gone. But the Esplanade in Durban is still looking pretty good. If we get to a slide of Natal Command, I hope we can find that one. It's got big colonnades. That's also on the Esplanade. And sadly, if you can find that shot, it is now just a shell. It's wow. Only the is left.
I'm just going through these slides, so I'm sure we'll get to it.
Spin through them.
But just on the Esplanade, you've got that statue of Dick King, the guy who rode down to Port Elizabeth to alert people what was going on. And right opposite Dick King, on the other side of the Esplanade, where the buildings are, you've got the Durban Club, the one with the
Yes.
copper dome. Have you ever been in
Yes.
there?
I have indeed. A funny story there, Scott. It's a while back. A rather incensed young lady reporter went there, and she wanted to know. This is going back a bit.
Yeah.
She wanted to know why there were no lady members. Because it's a gentleman club. So the chairman of the club said, "Well, we can't have lady members because we don't have ablutions for ladies." She said, "Well, why don't you build some?" He said, "Well, we don't need to. We've got no lady members." Yeah, but yes, that's still there. Very beautiful building, absolutely. And Dick King's statue is still there. Yes.
Yeah, well, I just want to say, or just mention that the Durban Club building is now actually owned by a black doctor who is from Zimbabwe, and
Right.
she was part of Mugabe's little clique. And
Okay.
she was the ambassador to the African Union. I've forgotten what her name is. It's a weird name, but she's one of those who financially did extremely well out of the fall of Zimbabwe. And
Okay.
she owns the Durban Club now. In fact, the actual club itself, they rent the first floor, a part of the first floor.
Right.
And the rest of it is now basically owned by this Zimbabwean woman,
All right.
including Durban Manor, which is quite sad. But their membership, they used to have a 20-year waiting list to get in. They had
Right,
3,000 members. They've now got only 300 members. And that's
that's sad.
dropping. When I was there in 2011, I spoke to the manager, and he said that had 2 people join the club in about 6 months. And he said
That's
they'd lost
sad.
about 20 people because Durban was so dangerous now, people weren't coming to the club anymore.
It is sad.
It is. It's tragic. All right, let's have a look at the next photo.
Okay, that's the Sunken Gardens again, as I say.
Okay.
Somebody's at least trying. And just behind it is, of course, the high-rise hotels, the Elangeni, the Malibu, etc., famous hotels. I had a flat on that beachfront during my army days. This is late 70s. It's still there. And Natal Command was our HQ. Hotel Command, it was known as. It was a desirable place to get posted to. I was in military security, and our HQ was there, which was great. And just around the corner was my flat. So happy days. Those were.
I love Durban Beach. My teenage years after school were spent on Durban Beach. I just loved it. They had the amusement park and all those things, which have now been actually shut down because
That's closed.
there's some big development that's going to go on right on the beach.
Durban, Scott, not necessarily by choice. I was very young at the time,
Yeah.
but I still love going back there.
Absolutely. All right, let's have a look at the next photo.
Yeah, there they are.
Sunken
The
Garden
hotels
again?
in the background. Yep, you can spin on. Those are the
Okay.
hotels in the background.
That's
Yeah,
the same.
the same one. There we go. Other way. That's it. Natal Command. Now that looks great. That is the facade. Above the door, the main door, is a magnificent relief of black wildebeest, the Natal emblem, etc. And that was our proud HQ. But if you look a little bit closer, you will see broken windows.
Yeah.
There's another couple of pictures. I don't know if you've got them there. I'm standing in front of those gates. They're rusty. They're chained closed. There's all kinds of garbage lying in there. Obviously, tramps now live there. And if you look through the gates, Natal Command is gone. It's only the facade that remains, and it's looking very shabby and is not used. It's derelict. So that was a bit of a shocker.
Yeah, it's rather like, have you heard of the stables where they had sort of like markets and stuff like that? And
Yes.
a couple of years ago, the Durban municipality decided that they would develop that area. I think it's near a big stadium. I think it's a rugby stadium. And they shut the stables down. This is a couple of years ago. And nothing's been done. And now, just like this building here, everything's been trashed.
Yeah.
It's just crazy.
It epitomizes South Africa at the moment. Our beautiful old historical buildings are generally looking rather shabby.
Yeah. Okay, I guess that's the same place.
If you look closely at that relief above, It's rather nice, and that gate was always guarded by real soldiers proudly in the old days. But as you can see now, it's trashed. If you look through the gates into the background, it's just a big open field now. The dog kennels, the bungalows, the officers' quarters, the messes. It was a magnificent HQ. They're all gone now. This is an open, overgrown field, and that is Natal Command now, sadly.
I'm surprised that beautiful relief above the gate is still there. That's the sort of thing you'd expect them to take out.
Yeah, I think it's well secured. Otherwise, it would probably be gone. Yeah.
Yeah,
the gates will go next.
Yeah, that's true because of metal. All right, is that the same building?
That is the field. Yep, that's the field.
Wow. Okay. Let's look at the next one.
It's an overgrown field now. That was Natal Command camp. That we had bungalows, messes, halls, dog kennels, etc. That's all gone now. That's what remains.
Wow. That's another one of it.
So yeah, that's what you can see from the other end. This is I think the last picture we took on our trip. This is coming back into the Eastern Cape, Toosrivier. The Matroosberg, and it had just snowed. Matroosberg, I think, is the highest or most visible mountain from the sea. You can actually see it from the sea, and hence the name. Matroos, being a sailor, I think it was used as a landmark by ancient mariners. But there it is under snow, and we're heading back into the Western Cape at this stage. I hope you found some of the pictures of Orania,
yes,
where we took directly from. This was the same day on our way back.
Yeah, we're kind of skipping around a bit, but that's okay.
That's okay. No, that's okay.
We've shown the general route. Now, that's the same one again. We're back in Grahamstown. Yeah, let's keep going. Okay, Hogsback.
Okay, oh yes, we mustn't miss Hogsback. This is on the journey up. Hogsback, of course, quite famous. A very kind of, what shall we say, bohemian place. Mm-hmm. Last time I was there was at a boy of 11. We were living in East London, and at the time, and it snowed in the mountains, and my parents took us up as kids to have a look at snow. So the first time I ever saw snow was in Hogsback. We were hoping it'd be snowing this time round. It was just very cold, but it wasn't snowing. So that's my dear wife in her element. She absolutely loved it, and the views from up there. You're at about 6,000 feet. The views are magnificent, and it's really developed. I'm thinking back more than 50 years, 55 years. There was a couple of little cottages. Now there's B&B after B&B and interesting shops and a lot of interesting characters, as you can imagine. But yes, quite a place, Hogsback. Well worth a visit. A lot of characters.
I've just got to again make an observation. That's a fearsome pair of boots that she's wearing. Kind of reminds you of that song, "These boots are made for walking."
Absolutely. No, she was hoping it was going to be snowing, but anyway, it snowed a couple of weeks later. Normally July it snows there. We were in June, but it was cold enough.
All right, let's have a look at the next photo.
Okay, that is Jeffreys Bay. Jeffreys Bay, still looking okay, a little bit worn around the edges, the surfer's mecca. But still quite nice, I must say, Jeffreys Bay. Okay.
And that's, again, your wife in the foreground.
Yes, she hates that picture, but
why?
There we go. Well, it's she says that's not her profile. She swears blind.
Okay. Now, this is a little video clip.
Okay, this is a little bit of a sad story. Our eldest, my wife's firstborn, drowned here 10 years ago. This is second beach in Port St. John's, and far distance is what they call the blowhole, that rock sticking up there. That's called the gap, and then there's the blowhole. And as young people do, he was 27, they take chances. We went up onto the mountain that overlooks it, and I can assure you it's an incredibly dangerous spot. And he, with a couple of friends, went down there from Durban. He was a contractor in Durban. And he went too close to the blowhole, and it blew, and he lost his footing, and he bashed his head, and he drowned. That was 10 years ago, almost dead on. And we haven't had the fortitude to go back there since then. But it was time, and we went, and I'm glad we did. And it's kind of, put it to rest. So it was an emotional time for my wife, especially being her firstborn.
Yeah.
But it was good to go back. And there were people there who remembered the occasion. And, they lose up to 4 people a year.
Wow.
Off that point, and there's signs saying it's dangerous, and as I say, we went up onto the mountain that overlooks it. It's incredibly dangerous, but young people being what they are, and they feel they're immortal and they take risks, so just pushed the envelope too far. But he lived life to the full, and he will be forever young. So there you go.
Okay, let's go to the next photo. Oh, the same thing. Hang on, I'll just go to the next one.
Let's skip on, yeah. That's the view from the mountain overlooking that beach, Second Beach, Port St. John's. It is just absolutely beautiful scenery there. Port St. John's is one of the most beautiful many years. Unfortunately, there is now a huge tin town, squatter shack town, and it's a bit scruffy, but the scenery is still magnificent. Port St. John's is now the playground, of course, for Mthatha, which is only 90 k's straight inland. So on weekends, it turns into one big party town, which the locals, of course, not too happy about. But it's still worth going there for sure. It is absolutely beautiful, Port St. John's. And it's kind of got its own, you could say, climate in a sense. It's almost subtropical. Coffee Bay is just around the corner. You wouldn't expect coffee to grow on the coast, but it does. There was a shipwreck there full of coffee beans, and they washed up and grew. And so it grows wild then. Yeah, so the climate is quite different there. Really absolutely beautiful. And we enjoyed our short time there, despite the sad history for us. It was well worth going there.
Yeah, I'm just going to put up the map of South Africa for a second, because what we're talking about here is the garden route area. That's where, in fact, it's actually coming up towards Mthatha. It's around this sort of area, and the really dangerous part, as far as driving a car, if I'm not mistaken, is somewhere between East London going up to Durban. That this stretch through Mthatha and places like that.
I've got to be honest, Scott. I would not be in a hurry to take that route again through the Transkei. The roads in places are absolutely atrocious. The worst are the towns. They've all changed names, of course, so you never know where you are, but they're all much of a business. And it takes about a 20 minutes to battle your way through each little town. They are jam-packed. And this is an observation we made. The Transkei, we never saw a single mud hut. They're gone. Not a single tin shack. Around the towns there's a few, but not in the countryside. The Eastern Cape, there's been a huge transfer of wealth. We chatted to the locals, and they said quite cheerfully, they send all their young people to the Western Cape to find work. They can squat for free, they get services for free, and they send the money home. And the parents build the house. And hill after hill are lovely houses. This was a real surprise to us. It's a good thing in that way. Beautiful houses, flashy cars. Ours was the old Skotagora. The beautiful cars, busy towns. They're trashed. And they're awful, but they're really busy. So there's a lot of disposable income. And the one old gent, old Xhosa gent, he told us that the Western Cape has replaced the gold mines in the Gauteng and the Free State as a source of income for their people now. The Xhosa, they go to the Western Cape to work, as I mentioned, because they get not free board and lodging, but they squat wherever they want, and they get services and so on, and they live for free, basically, rent-free anyway, and they send the money home. So, the Eastern Cape has definitely profited from this change, this transfer of wealth, and they're doing pretty well, despite what you might hear. Fat cattle on every hill, countless schools with very neatly uniformed young kids who haven't seen, in some places, many white people, because as we would drive through the odd little town, they'd say, "Oh, look, Umlungu," with their name for whitey. They were quite surprised to see us there. Some obviously hadn't seen too many that looked like us, pale faces. Yeah. But it was, I knew the Transkei pretty well, having lived in East London, and having gone through it many times before, but many years ago. So it was quite a surprise to see. It has changed considerably.
Well, just to add to what you were saying there, Cuan, one of the things I've noticed is the growing number of coloureds who are traditionally the indigenous population of the Western Cape, they're complaining more and more about how, because of black economic empowerment, the jobs that they used to get are now being given to these Africans who come through from the Eastern Cape, and they're basically losing out as a result.
Well, the government, to everyone's shock and horror, has now legislated, or trying to legislate, that you may only employ a certain amount of coloured folk. They want the demographics of the area to be ignored, the fact that 50% of the population of the Western Cape are in fact coloured folk, or they rather than call themselves Griquas now, Khoi. That you can only employ a certain amount of them. They want the national demographic, which is 80% black African, to be applied everywhere. So the coloured folk in the Western Cape are not too happy about that. And this is one of the reasons why a lot of them also support secession, because they feel that they're having racist apartheid-type laws shoved down their throats 30 years into democracy. Yeah.
Just on that point, I think it's important that we raise this at this point in time, because if there is one community that's been at the wrong end of the story all the way through South African history, it's the coloured people, because during apartheid they were treated not much better than the blacks. They might have been treated slightly better than the blacks, but not much.
They lost the vote, in 1948 or 49,
And now they're in the same boat as the whites. They're treated as second-class citizens. It's absolutely tragic.
They're not happy about that, but some say, well, the whites are being treated as third-class citizens. So it's a matter of degrees now. Yeah.
Okay, let's have a look at the next one. Oh wow, where's that?
That is Port St. John's. That is the manager of the lodge we stayed at. Very nice chap.
Yeah.
And that is a view over Port St. John's from the airfield, which is on top of the hill. They call it the cow dung airfield because there's always cows there, and the light planes coming into the lodges have to buzz the field to scatter the cows before they can land. But he stands a bit strangely because, oddly, he ended up as a very big fertilizer manufacturing outfit, and he was in one of the machines having a look at it, and somebody switched it on. And his right arm is in fact artificial, and his right leg, it's pretty chewed up, but he gets around, and a very interesting guy, and he knows the history of the area very well. So he showed us around. That's the Port St. John's River, and there's the bridge that you can see heading from Port St. John's across the river, going up to Flagstaff, and that's the bridge we took heading out. And from there you're going through, deepest, darkest Transkei, all the way to KwaZulu-Natal.
A couple of years ago on Loving Life TV, our resident pastor, Dan Berryman, he decided he would take his little microlight, not a real microlight, but one of those programs where you can fly on your computer screen. And he flew around the entire coast of South Africa, right along the borders, and he prayed during the flight. And I know people like Marius, who's watching tonight, and obviously Marlena, would remember those videos that I put up, which covered the entire coastline. He did about 100 kilometers a time. There were about 30 videos in total. And the one place he landed was on that cow dung airfield that you're talking about. Because he actually talked about that.
Rather hazardous, but the views from there are magnificent. And while we were up there, we could see the sardine run, the famous sardine run, working its way up the coast. It was a good few kilometers offshore, but you could see the massive flocks of seabirds hovering over, and we sort of followed it all the way up the coast. The timing was quite good. It's a natural phenomenon unequaled anywhere in the world, and the magnitude of those shoals is quite something. As I said, it was a good few k's out to see, but it stretched from as far as you could see in the west to as far as you could see in the east, heading up the coast. Absolutely massive shoals of sardines, which you could see very well from there.
Yeah, it's something that happens in June and July, around that sort of period, in the middle of winter.
Quite a phenomenon.
Yeah. All right, let's have a look at the next photo. Oh, it's a video.
Okay, this is my wife's video. I'm just trying to figure out where this is now. Yeah, this is Second Beach, Port St. John again. You can move on if you want. I think we've seen pretty much that.
Okay.
Okay, that's myself looking rather portly. Also on those mountains. Can move on. Thank you, Scott.
Oh, is that the same one as the one we saw just now?
Pretty
Same
much,
place. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, as you can see, Port St. John's is almost tropical. It's quite strange because that area is not, in fact, tropical, but it's the bush growth there is prolific, and there's a lot of sort of palm trees and tropical type vegetation. Yeah, quite a special place, Port St. John's, and interesting people. Some of them have been there all their lives. They don't want to leave, and you can understand. It's nature provides. Everything grows. The fishing is excellent. So on. So yeah, Port St. John's.
Okay.
All right. This is a typical little town in the Transkei. As you can see, it's just jam packed with taxis. And very busy. The towns are kind of trashed. There's these old colonial Victorian buildings, Cape Dutch buildings looking very shabby, but the centers of the towns, and it takes a good 20 minutes to get through even the smallest town.
Yeah.
There's my wife with a map on the left and trying to battle our way through the taxis. Yeah, it's a very typical Transkei town these days. But as you will see, there's a lot of vehicles, a lot of people. They're piling up their provisions onto buckies and into buses, and very busy. So a lot of disposable income. Booming little towns, but very poorly maintained, unfortunately.
I had a close escape at Mthatha. I nearly drove into a taxi, which would have been fatal. I missed it by inches. That was back in 2011. Yeah, look, I would not take that road through Mthatha. Definitely not.
Yeah. We were warned. They said people said, "Oh, they're going to grab all your luggage off the roof while you go through." So I made sure it was well strapped on. But we made it through. But we were the only pale faces, to be honest. And say the odd school kids would go through and say, "Hello, Mlungu." So yeah, hello.
Yeah. No, that's crazy. Okay, let's go to the next one.
Oh, okay. That's my wife's. Wrote that in the
is that for your son?
Yeah. So
yeah.
It's just in amongst the lot. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Second Beach, Port St. John's. Can move on. There seem to be a lot of those.
Same again.
Yeah, same again. And we bumped into a very nice lady there, coloured lady from our area. She lived just around the corner.
Yeah.
So we had a good chat. Yeah. Okay. Moving on. Okay, Port St. John's. Gee, there seem to be a lot of those. Path through the bush. Yeah, keep going.
Okay.
Keep going. Keep going.
Oh, that's interesting. What's
this
that?
is a lovely little church in Hogsback. It sadly burnt down to the ground about 10 years ago, but they've rebuilt it. And surprisingly, it doesn't lock. The doors are wide open. Everybody seems to know everybody in Hogsback. It's kind of unusual. But the road doesn't really go anywhere. It goes to Hogsback, so everybody knows everyone. It's sort of end of the road. And, little church there.
Okay. Hang on, I'm just getting my cursor in the right place.
Memorial Wall, same place.
Okay.
If you can find some of Arania, it would be good.
We're getting to Arania, yeah. I'll just run through these. You tell me when to slow down. Okay.
Keep going.
Okay, keep going.
Random snaps.
Okay.
Random snaps. Oh, I have no idea what that is.
There's a
random snaps. Yeah. Okay. St. Patrick's on the Hill. That's Hogsback. Yeah.
Oh, that's that same one. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Same guy.
I think you've my wife's pictures. Oh no, I took this one. Okay, she doesn't mind that one. That's Hogsback as well.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, my wife loves plants, as you can see. Hogsback somewhere. Keep rolling, Scott. Hogsback. Okay. View from Hogsback. Rather beautiful. Not too far, probably 40.
Sorry, guys.
Pretty awful. But Fort Hare is still there, the university where Mugabe, Mandela, quite a few of the luminaries spent their time. That's still going around the corner, Alice, nearest town to Hogsback. But that's the road you come up to, Hogsback. There it is. You climb 6,000 feet in just a couple of Ks.
Wow. You've got a strange look on your face there. What's happening?
Scared of heights.
I was at the edge of a cliff just in front of you.
Yeah, it's called the. Funny enough, it's called the edge. That exact spot. Yeah, and it's about a 2,000-3,000 foot drop. You don't want to go too close.
Wow. You know, these people who sort of go right up to the edge and look over, and you think,
God, just be that
crazy.
Well, Scott, it seems like you've ended up with our holiday snaps. You know what they say? Same old slides. Repeat. So just keep rolling. Yeah, Hogsback.
Okay. I'm not going any closer.
You definitely got my wife's pictures. It was the accommodation at the edge. You really are literally on the edge of a 6,000 foot view at the edge. Hogsback is definitely worth a stop. If you
that sounds like God's window.
It's the view is kind of similar, yeah.
Now, where's that?
This is the edge in Nog. We're still in Hogsback.
Oh, right, okay. Let's keep moving.
Yeah.
That's a view.
That's a view.
Is that back at Port St. John's or?
No, Sinsa. This is Eastern Cape coastline again. Yeah,
right.
North of East London and Ganubi. Yeah.
Okay. Oh yeah. Oh, that's where there was a photo of your wife with the wine, and now you've got your sushi.
Yeah, you've got. It looks like someone's dumped all our holiday pictures on you, Scott, and you've got to try. You're not doing well. Various accommodation. You can keep rolling, Scott.
Right.
Let's see if we can get to Orania.
Okay, I'll just keep flashing through.
Yeah, okay, that is Ganubi. Rather nice, still rather nice. Sadly, the little hotel we stayed in a B&B sort of near it is owned by a son of one of Zuma's sons, or one of his many sons, who has. We saw a video of him taking delivery of his X6 bi-turbo BMW. He owns the hotel there now. I think he paid 30 or 40 million for it. But just a couple of days later, we saw another video of the same BMW, which went tearing up this road, apparently, at something like 200 kilometers an hour. He'd only had it a couple of days, lost control, and the commentator, who was from the towing company, said he has never seen a car in so many pieces.
I did a video on that.
Yep, including the driver. It was there.
Yeah, but he was killed, wasn't he?
Well, wasn't just killed, he was dismembered. Yeah.
Yeah, because the whole front of the car was just shredded.
Absolutely torn to shreds. He apparently lost control at 200 k's an hour in a suburban street there in Ganubi. Yeah.
Oh, well, couldn't happen to a nicer guy. Let's go to the next photo. What's this one here?
A tree.
Yeah, well, where?
Scott, just keep rolling. If we come across Ronnie, I'll fill in.
That's lovely.
That's the Nahoon River mouth in East London. As youngsters, we used to have a wonderful time there. It still looks good. Parts of East London, actually, in the suburbs, out of town, still look good. The town, not so good.
I like the footsteps along the bank.
Yeah, our coast is just gorgeous, and tourists really would enjoy it.
Yeah,
if they're brave. Yeah.
Okay, Sam again.
Yep, Nahoon Beach. Yep. That's the Bud course.
We got everything here.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sure we're coming to Orania soon.
Yeah, we sooner or later.
Yeah.
St. John's there. So this is a dizzying trip. This is one of the little towns. Yeah, they're very typical sort of scenario.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty.
Okay. Oh, we're in Knysna. There we go. Wonderful. That was our first stop, in fact. And Knysna Lagoon, a magnificent place. That's just by the Park Sport offices there where the yachts come in. What you were talking about, the heads.
Yes.
Yeah, nice. Now, the old railway tracks not used anymore. Narrow gauge. They used to bring in the lumber to the sawmills, which were on Teeston Island. That's Teeston Island. Yeah, Knysna definitely worth a visit for anybody in the country. Well worth the trip. Just the most beautiful place.
You know what I find absolutely fantastic about Knysna is that, as you say, the island that you drive around across a little causeway, and then you've got this little community that live on this little island. And if you had a tidal wave of 5 meters go through there, it would take everything out, because they're that low.
You've got the two: Paradise Island, Pleasure Isle. I can't remember exactly. That's the one, and then you've got Teeston Island, which is this one.
Yeah.
You're right; they're not very high above sea level.
It's a beautiful spot there.
Teeston Island's very upmarket, very expensive. That's where we did the book launch at the hotel there, which is, as I say, it was the old power station, which has been refurbed into a 5-star hotel. Quite something. Okay, we're in that is Nottingham Road in Natal.
Oh, not in.
Original Volkswagen there. Transport modes have changed a bit, but yeah, that's the back wheel. Pretty big. We stopped at a lovely roadside place there where you could have breakfast, etc. Nottingham Road, still very beautiful. A lot of the little Natal towns still very beautiful. In the Midlands, not bad at all.
The pub at Nottingham Road is infamous.
Yes.
It tells a few stories.
Yeah, one of the oldest in the country.
Yeah, absolutely.
I remember teenage days, we used to drive on our motorbikes up from Durban to Nottingham Road, spend the weekend there, and there was an old bulldog in the hotel who loved to be by the fire. It always seems to be always cold there, and he was strong enough to just shove your bar stool out of the way if you wanted to get to the fire. I remember that well, the old bulldog.
And of course, it's very close to Michael House, where I went to boarding school.
Oh, you did, eh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you go past Michael House?
Yes, we did. We used to play rugby against them, and very prestigious school. So must have done you good.
Well, it was the second. It is today the second most expensive school in South Africa. It's about 85,000 rand per annum.
It was never cheap.
And the most expensive is Hilton College, near Pietermaritzburg, which is over 300,000 rand per annem.
Yeah, we lived in Hilton for a period as a young man near St. Anne's College, and that's a great school, Hilton.
Yeah. Right, what's that?
Accommodation in Orania.
We're getting to Orania. Right.
We finally got there. They call it aan die oever, on the banks of the Orange River.
Oh, lovely.
And the last time we were there, as I say, was honeymoon 17 years ago. The town has grown exponentially. There's a lovely resort. This is the little chalet we stayed in, right on the Orange River, and it is beautifully run. It's spotless. The town is spotless. It was the only place in South Africa where I saw cars parked at the shops with their car windows open and their keys in. There's absolutely no crime. It was an absolute pleasure. Orania is an absolute pleasure, and I would encourage anybody who happens to be way out in that part of the country, Kimberley Way, to make a turn there, stay overnight. You're going to love it. Yeah.
Now, they're putting in solar so they can get off the grid. Did you see the big solar panel area?
Yes. We did, the solar park, yes. They've got the free water there. They're hoping that soon the whole town will be off the grid.
Wow.
A large part of it is they have their own sewage works, as I say, free water for irrigation and domestic use out of the Orange and off the Van der Kloof Dam irrigation scheme. The town originally was the labor camp for the building of the Van der Kloof Dam.
Yes.
And some of the prefabs, and this is going back about 60 years, some of the prefabs are still there and still in good condition. They were beautifully built in those days. But, it's an Afrikaner cultural village. I know they get a lot of flack for, being only Afrikaners, but, I have no problem with it whatsoever. I would have a cultural village and being very pleased to see only Zulu culture. That's why I would go there. So same thing there, Afrikaner culture, Afrikaner history. They've got all their little monuments. I'm very pleased to say there's a photograph amongst all of them of the Irish volunteers who fought on the side of the Boers during the Anglo-Boer War. the folk of Orania went and got the monument from Brixton in Johannesburg because it was being vandalized, and moved it to Orania,
Wow.
which I think a very noble gesture on their behalf to honour the Irish volunteers who fought alongside them against the old enemy, England.
Well, the history of Orania, as I understand it, is that Verwoerd's son-in-law, who's now a high-up member of the Freedom Front Plus party, he actually was one of the guys who was involved in buying the land, which
Correct.
became Orania. And
well, originally Professor Karel Boshoff, who
that's
his
him.
dad. Now we've got Wynand Boshoff. Yes, he's
Wynand
well
Boshoff.
placed.
That's it. Yeah.
He's well placed in the Freedom Front, and they have their own vision for the future. That this is a place of refuge for people who there. That's the Irish monument, by the way, which was brought down all the way from Brixton, Johannesburg, to the Irish volunteers who sided with the Boers in the Anglo-Boer War. So I'm very pleased to see that safe and sound now in Orania.
Right. Okay, let's have a look at the next one. Oh, there we go. That's a famous statue area.
Little monument park, yes. The little man in the middle is their little symbol. It's a little man rolling up his sleeves, a young boy, to say, he's going to roll his sleeves up and get stuck in. And those other statues are all the previous prime ministers of South Africa, a few notable exceptions. And the one on the extreme right is Paul Kruger, original Boer Republic, much loved president.
Is F.W. de Klerk there?
No.
Oh, that's not surprising.
As I said, a few notable exceptions.
Okay, let's go to the next one. Oh, hang on, I skipped one.
That is the beach. Well, if you can go back one, that's just sort of sorry, the one in between. Well, never mind. That's the Orange River, the sort of fishing spot for the locals. We went there. That's their sort of picnic spot. Very lovely spot. The Orange River, of course, is our biggest and longest river in South Africa, and full of fish. So fishing, angling's a popular sport there. This is the Orania's fishing and picnic spot, just on the edge of the village.
Beautiful, beautiful. I mean, it really is a little diamond in a bunch of coal, if I can put it that way.
Yeah, no, it was an absolute pleasure. That's a view of part of the town from the top of the hill. There's the church there, and the town. It's actually a farm, a private farm, and you buy into it as a sort of a shareholder.
Yeah.
And so, of course, they will vet and interview anybody who wants to buy in, and they're pretty particular. They do not tolerate crime whatsoever. I think there's a jail there. It's been there about 15 years. It's never been used because there's nobody there who would get up to anything that requires being put in jail. They really run a tight ship, and as I say, there's absolutely no crime. The kids leave their bicycles on the pavements overnight. Nobody locks their houses. The cars all stand with their windows open with the keys in, which in South Africa is unheard of these days. So yeah, it is a harsh landscape. It's not an easy place. It's edging on the Kalahari, but with irrigation, anything grows. And the little almond trees and olive trees that we saw 17 years ago are now big, mature trees, and it's doing very well agriculturally now.
Yeah. Well, just a bit more on Orania. They're currently opening up 500 more lots for people, and apparently they're just about sold out straight away. And in fact, Marlene's sister has bought one of the lots. And a lot of people are now just buying that block of land. And the condition is you have to speak Afrikaans fluently.
Yeah.
If you can't speak,
but I will say, they are very open-minded in the sense that if they realize you're English speaking, which doesn't take long, they will speak English to you. And most of the people in the town can speak English.
Yeah.
They do require that you at least try and speak Afrikaans or learn Afrikaans. In the same way, if you go to Holland to get citizenship, you have to do Dutch language courses, etc. And they have that tradition that it's an Afrikaans-speaking town, but they're very welcoming, and no problem if you're English-speaking, no problem at all. and most of the people there can speak English. I left a couple of books of mine at the library there, and I asked the librarian, would these be any use to you? They're South African history, Boer history, etc. She said a lot of people there read English books, and bear in mind that most people have moved there, so they've come from the cities. They most of them can speak English pretty well. And there's some people there who are in fact English speaking, but they can't speak Afrikaans. So they're very open in that. But you have to sort of buy into the Afrikaner culture.
Right.
They're very much traditionalist, old school, conservative. Yes.
Yeah, and they've got a big school there as well. But are most of the people there retired or semi-retired people?
Well, a lot of people are retiring there now, Scott. It's growing exponentially. The suburbs are just growing and growing. It's doubled in size in just the last few years.
Wow.
There's only, at this stage, only about 3,000 people there, but they're projecting that within the next 10 years, there'll be 10,000. Wow. So it's growing fast. There are a lot of retired folk, but there's a lot of young people, and they provide the labor. They all their own work. Everything is done by them. They don't bring in labor. And hence they have very little crime. Everybody knows everybody. Yeah. They're very welcoming. Your arm gets sore waving to everywhere you drive. People wave to you as you pass anybody in the streets or in the roads. They wave. They're very friendly. It's got a lovely atmosphere, and we thoroughly enjoyed our time there.
Yeah, and it's rather like Norfolk Island. They call it the Norfolk Island salute when you drive on the streets. Everybody sort of, you raise a couple of fingers and say hello, basically. Yeah.
Yes, everybody greets everybody. It's like, as I say, it's a harsh environment. That's the landscape. It's rocky. It's very dry, but the temperatures can get into the 40s in summer. They can get below 0 in winter. It never got above 9 degrees in the time we were there, so pretty chilly in winter. But the summers are long, lots of sunshine, so it means there's very little in the way of crop diseases and so on. And there's copious water. There's no limit on what you can use. So if you plant stuff and you water it, it grows in the desert. No problems. So they're doing well. And as you can see, a lot of the trees now are maturing. That's one of the new suburbs looking out towards the airfield. They have their own airfield. And that's one of the new suburbs, which is slowly growing on the hill there. So it's growing in all directions.
That's fantastic. The Iranian movement who basically managed the town, I've forgotten what the guy who's the manager of the movement. It begins with an O. Marlena would know, but he's a fantastic young guy. I mean, he's so progressive and he's got so many good ideas. And I said to them that they've got their own banknotes. They call it the Aura. But I said to them they should have their own token coins as well. The smaller coins, like 50 cents and 20 cents.
They've got it taped. The money circulates in the town because there's nowhere to go other than the town. The nearest town is Hope Town, which is a hopeless town. It's about 40 k's away. It's the usual South African mess, country town, run by the usuals. And so nobody really goes there. Kimberley is the nearest big town. That's quite a distance away. So the money circulates in the town. And as you say, they've got their own currency, the Aura. Their own bank. You can get referential loans, etc., if you need to develop, and the money stays in the town. It's wonderful. If you want to go out for the night and party, there's lovely places, Stockies, Dry, and this and that, and they got their own brewery. So party time, and the money stays in the town. So it's a great idea, and it's working very well.
I also said to this young fellow, I said what they should do, because a lot of that money gets taken out of the town by tourists as like a keepsake. They can. Go ahead.
I've got 100 Aura note. Yeah.
Oh, there you go. And this is
1-to-1 with the rand. Yeah.
And this is where they actually make really good money. And I said to
they stole their money.
I said that every year they should bring out a new series, and then have its lifespan for 1 year after that. So those people,
they must have taken your advice, because they do expire, almost like a voucher.
Oh, fantastic! That's
so you can buy the expired ones at a discount.
Okay, cool. There you go. All right, let's move on. Welcome in Arania.
That's it. There's the little man rolling up his sleeves there. That's their symbol. The sign, I don't know if you can read it too well. If you zoom in, you could, but it says, we do not tolerate crime. We do not tolerate littering. There's no messing about. There you go. Look at that. Let's read it. You're entering private property. Right of admission reserved, subject to the rules and regulation. No crime will be tolerated. The owner or his proxy questions any suspicious person and conduct, etc., and you'll get hoofed out. That's basically what it says. Yeah. They're private roads, so on. They don't mess around. So they run a tight ship, and it's great to see. Yeah. Really great to see. People are relaxed. They're not, looking over their shoulders every few minutes to see if they're going to get mugged. It's an absolute pleasure and a real breath of fresh air in South Africa today.
Yeah, I wonder how Malema would do if he just appeared in Arania.
He apparently arrived there with a whole armed entourage, and they said, you can come in, but you're not coming in with your gangster entourage. They can sit on the outskirts of the town. They let him in. So, they are, as I say, they're quite welcoming to anyone because they've got nothing to hide. They're proud of what they've done there. People try and point fingers, but as I say, would you go to a Zulu cultural village and accuse them of not being diverse enough? Of course not. So why would it be any different in an Afrikaner cultural village?
Yeah, I remember that infamous Enka report where they said it's a racist town, and that just drew such a lot of backlash.
Would a Zulu cultural village be considered racist? Of course not. So it's nonsense. It's racism in itself by accusing them of that. It's an Afrikaner cultural village, bottom line.
And you got a Steve Hofmeyer type pose there. But
rolling up my sleeves out, right? I've got one of the old flags. You're not allowed to display them these days, but you can keep them as mementos. Signed by Steve Hofmeyer.
Okay.
In my cabinet in my very office where I'm sitting, and it's written on there, "Ons sal dit oorleef." We will survive.
Yeah.
That's what I wrote on there and signed. Yeah, old Steve.
Well, I've got the flag hanging on my wall here behind me.
You're allowed to.
Yeah, I am. I'm in Australia.
It may be displayed in public, other than for I don't know what reasons. That's the jetty in Umhlanga. It's supposed to be whale bones. It's on either side of the jetty. So we're back in Durban, Natal, just north of Durban. Those are the new high rises. Those ones are pretty new. Wow. The old Beverly Hills was always there, and the Oyster Box, which we went to, still looking good. But those are new ones, these gleaming tower blocks. And as I say, a very, very upmarket. Umhlanga always was. We used to go there as teenagers and party. It always was, but it really is now. I don't think, as I say, you don't see anything but luxury cars, beautiful houses, beautiful people. It's really quite a place now, sort of a Saint-Tropez almost, of the Natal coast. Yeah, it's looking good.
Now, 6 months ago, this walk here was covered in crap. I actually had put a video out about that, and you had these people complaining. I mean, this is one of the most upmarket places in KZN, and their main walkway next to the sea was just flowing with crap.
Oh right, yes, sewage problems from the floods and that. Yeah. That's a problem all up the Natal coast currently. They can't seem to keep up. They keep getting hit with. If you can go back one, that's the famous lighthouse in Umhlanga. I know that area so well, having gone to high school in Durban. We used to go to Umhlanga regularly, and that lighthouse was sort of the meeting place. We used to have great times there. So, it was nice to go back. And Umhlanga, as I say, is one of the places, although you can see the walkway there is a bit
I was about to say that, yeah. The walkway, the walkway over here.
Generally, they've fixed things up after the floods, but Umhlanga's is still looking good.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you can see that the municipality. It's obviously run by the ANC. Are not pulling their weight. Isn't that beautiful? Is that Umhlanga too?
No, we flashback. There's a flashback. This is Vic Bay, just outside George and on the way to Knysna. So this would have been on our way up. Yeah, a rather grey day in Vic Bay. Famous surfing spot. That little walkway, the promenade there, has got only about a dozen houses, and that's that. There's no space to build anymore. Most of them were B&Bs, but quite a world famous surfing spot, and known to the locals as Victoria Bay. Yeah.
And that would be on the Garden Route, wouldn't it?
Yes, correct.
Yeah. Okay. That's sort of east of Cape Town on the beach.
Flashback.
Yeah. Oh, we've seen that one.
We're flashing back. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Oh, that's Orania. We're back there in the Northern Cape again. That's our view from our chalet in Orania. That's the view you get over the river. They've got a floating sort of pontoon which buzzes around, takes people out to have a look. Just alongside this setup is the huge pumps which supply water to the town and to the local irrigation, and it's mainly sort of desert type stuff like pomegranates, almonds, olives, that sort of stuff that will grow there. Across the way is the Free State. You can see it there, and you're sitting here in the Northern Cape.
Yeah.
So they're right on the border, on the Orange River, and in the middle of nowhere, really, between Kimberley and nearest town, Hope Town. But well worth it. Orania is a real, as I say, breath of fresh air. No stress, very relaxed, very friendly, very safe, very clean, lovely little town.
And just talking about Hope Town, it's actually one of the oldest settlements in the Free State, because that's where the first diamond in South Africa was identified. And in fact, the farm,
now,
the farmers association there, the building where they sell all sort of stuff for farmers, they've got a piece of glass as you walk in the front door with scratches on it. And they actually say this is a piece of glass that identified the Hope Diamond.
Yes, I've heard of this. That's brilliant. Yeah, it would scratch or cut glass.
Yes.
Now, if you look at a map carefully, Kimberley, which ended up as the main diamond center, geographically lies within the Orange Free State. But in my book, Bulala, I explain how the British stole it.
Yes.
They redrew the and they made it part of the Cape Colony.
And they did that by moving David's grave.
Yeah, well, they pulled all kinds of slave hands. They paid the local chief, Waterboer was his name.
Yeah, Andries.
Andries Waterboer. They paid him £90,000, which was probably 0.00001% of the value of the diamonds which eventually came out of there. So the British pulled quite a move there. And geographically, yes, Kimberley's should be Free State, but it's in the Cape Colony.
I think there's a bit of a postscript to that story, because the Free State almost went bankrupt, and I think it was an agreement made, because the Boers kept on saying, "Hey, that Kimberley's on our property, not in Griqualand West," and the British government came up with a resolution where they paid the Free State government. It was quite a lot of money for the time, but it got them out of close to bankruptcy. That was back in the you'd know it, back 1870s or something.
It's in my book, yes. The deals and what went on under the table and the goings on. Yeah. But ultimately, the Kimberley Diamonds mines ended up in the Cape, although they were actually in the Free State. Mm-hmm. If you look at the map, they're on the other side of the Orange River. But yeah, very interesting history there. But the Orange River, as you well know, I'm sure, it brings down copious amounts of diamonds all the way down to the coast, onto the Oraniamund, and spill out on the beaches. So much, in fact, that the guys who've got the concessions there, I think it's Anglo-American, concrete the beaches and places over the diamonds, because they're not ready to mine them yet, and to stop people stealing them. The Spargebied, the restricted area, and also to keep the price stable, because if those diamonds became flooded onto the market, it wouldn't do the price much good. So yeah, interesting part of the world.
Apparently the price of diamonds is going to be dropping quite dramatically, because they've now got such a surplus. De Beers have got this huge vault with literally tons of diamonds in it, and they're stocking them there because they don't want to flood the market. Diamonds are actually not all that rare.
they've kept them rare, but I
Yeah.
believe the Russians are producing industrial diamonds now at such a rate, and they're pretty good. It takes a real expert to tell the difference. So
Yeah.
yes, I think they're probably diversifying now away from diamonds, probably to hedge their bets.
Well, you've got that. Is it called a cubic zirconia, which is like a?
No, they make genuine diamonds, the real thing, but artificially, yes.
Wow.
Yeah, I was chatting
By
to someone
heating
the
up
other day.
coal.
Pretty good. They're pretty good. You can hardly tell the difference. Yeah.
Wow.
The Ruskins. Yeah.
There you go. Okay, let's keep going. So, another little video clip.
Yeah. Flashback to one of my wife's videos. This is Hogs back again. But
Okay,
that
we'll
hotel,
go to.
that hotel in the background, I was last there 55 years ago. I'm 66 next month. So it was quite a trip back in time.
We've seen
Okay,
these.
we're in reverse. Yeah, we were in reverse. Yeah.
I
I think we've pretty much
I
covered,
think we've covered them. Yeah, I think what's
Yes.
happened is it's going to the first one again.
Something I noticed, Scott, in our travels is that the Western Cape really is a kind of a different world compared to the rest of South Africa.
Yeah.
For instance, when we were in Gauteng, the traffic lights don't work. We were on the West Rand, and it's not as though it was for load shedding. They just don't work, and they don't seem to have bothered to fix them. The traffic lights, what we call robots in this country.
Yeah.
Foreigners are always intrigued, we're the robots. But I think they came from the 60s. They were called robot-controlled traffic lights, which was rather a mouthful. So they ended up as robots. But they just don't work. And the lines in the road haven't been repainted, etc. So for someone who's not used to driving around there, especially at night, it's quite frightening. You suddenly see cars zipping across the front of you. You think, where the heck did they come from? And you realize you're at a four-way junction. The traffic lights aren't working. There are no lines painted in the road. So pretty hazardous. So yeah, when you get back to the Western Cape, and I know I keep saying this, but that's where we live now, and I can see why, because it is really a different scenario. It's well kept, it's clean. We've got our squatter camps now, but generally speaking, it's reasonably well run compared to the rest of the country, and our roads are in good shape. Our tourist attractions are quite beautiful and well kept. So yeah, the only place that's still looking, reasonably okay to me is the Durban area. We spent a fair bit of time there, and there are some very nice areas still. Some they've seemed to have held it together pretty well there. So there are still enclaves, but they tend to be on the coast now.
You didn't go to the Drakensberg, places like Champagne Castle?
We didn't have time to stop there, but we drove through, of course, and of course, magnificent.
Oh, it's beautiful.
As always, yeah.
Did you go up, what's it called, Van Renden's Pass?
Van Renden's Pass, we did, and as I say, we were fortunate. All the roadblocks and riots seem to be behind us, except for the one occasion. Sometimes we missed them by minutes, sometimes by half a day. But no, we travelled safely, although stressful at times. But yeah, Van Renden's, and it's always a pleasure to stop there. There's that tiny little church, the refectory, one of the smallest in the world, and the British soldiers' grave behind it. It's definitely a place worth stopping on halfway to Joburg, and that road is still good, of course. Durban to Joburg is an excellent road. So our national roads are great. You can travel at 120 k's an hour on most of them. Pretty well organised and safe. So thank God for that. Provincial roads, so. Country roads, trashed. Swiss cheese. Town roads, even bad, even worse, except for the Western Cape. But we travelled well and reasonably safely and pretty speedily on the national roads. So tourists, it's still worth coming. And I see South Africa's just been voted as the best tourist country in the world just the other day. So it's that could be our saving grace if we polish up and shine up and welcome the tourists. At least we get some forex in.
By the way, the young fellow who manages the Irania movement is Joost Strydom. Marlena's just put it.
Very switched on young man. Yes.
Oh, very, very switched on, yeah. Top guy. We're going to have him on a live stream shortly on Loving Live TV. All right. Thank you so much. That's been a fascinating insight to what your trip was like.
I think it's my fourth appearance on your show, and I want to thank you. You know, over the years, we're getting old together.
We are. We're old farts.
But you seem to have a remarkable amount of energy. You do the show night after night. I don't know how you do it, and I watch it quite frequently, and you have the most fascinating characters. And I thank you for once again invitation, and I look forward to another time. And thank you also to Marlena for trying to unscramble all the hundreds of photographs.
Now, I just before you go, we had a live stream 10 days ago that's had nearly 600,000 views.
Fantastic.
Isn't that amazing?
You know, I always have a surge in book sales after I've been on your show. I think it's the fourth time on your show at least. And every time they think, who's this Cuan Elgin? And it's such an odd name. They look it up and think, what? And I suddenly get a bit of a surge in book sales.
Oh, there you go.
So thanks again.
Really that's absolutely a pleasure. And just before you go, as someone who's just driven around South Africa, or 5,000 kilometers through South Africa, what's your advice to anybody from outside South Africa when it comes to driving on South African roads? For example, like when the road was blocked, you did a U-turn. I mean, do you want to just give some simple tips to people?
Well, first of all, I'd tell them to keep left. These little tourist cars coming along and they're not quite sure which lane they're supposed to be in. Yeah, keep left. But look, I will hand it to our emergency services and our law enforcement, certainly the traffic police and so on. They're pretty much on the ball. The other thing they need to do, and we're trying to implement it in Cape Town for starters, because that's where most of the tourists land, is that you get an app onto your phone at the airport, free. And it's a safety, app. It'll update you on road conditions and so on. So we're trying to implement that. It's quite a mission, but we'd like to do that at all our major entry points. So that's coming. But certainly the national roads are excellent. They're safe. They're well managed. You pay quite hefty tolls, by the way. Joburg to Durban now and back will cost you about 650 or close to 700 rand in tolls.
Wow.
It's about 300. Yep, it's about 350 rand either way. So that'll add a bit to your trip, but at least they're clean, safe, well patrolled, no problems. So as long as they stick to the main routes, don't go wandering off too much into the countryside unless you know somebody in the area, or you're on the safety forums, etc. But generally speaking, it's pretty safe as long as you stick to the main routes and just don't go into any dodgy areas like in the same you would do in any country. Big cities are dangerous all over the world. Ours are particularly so. So, and there's not a lot to see in them, quite honestly, these days. So stick to the coast as much as possible. And then there's, of course, the Kruger Park, which is fantastic and well managed and safe, pretty safe. And the Drakensberg, as you mentioned, all the main attractions. But be prepared to drive and drive and drive. This is a big country. And we covered in the 5,000 kilometers only 6 of the 9 provinces. So, it's a big country, and give yourself lots of time. It's for locals, it's not cheap now to travel around the country, but for foreigners, everything's half price. So they'll love it. And the rand hovering pathetically to the dollar, euro, and pound makes things very cheap, very affordable. Our accommodation is top class. Our restaurants, our wines, etc., top class, world class. So they're going to love it. So my advice to them is come, keep left, and be safe. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Cuan, thank you so much, and we look forward to our next chat in the future.
Great stuff. Thank you, Scott. All the best to you. Huh?
Take care.
Cheers.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
All right, guys, that was Cuan Elgin, and of course he's a historian and an author and just a lovely guy. And we'll have Cuan back in the future, and I'll leave that to Marlena to sort out. All right, I'm going to go out with Hier Bly Ek Boer. And, of course, the singer here is Winston Coetzee, and it's one of the theme songs we play on a regular basis on Loving Life TV. Have a great evening, everybody, and don't forget, tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Johannesburg time, we will have another live stream. And just keep an eye on the top of Loving Life TV where it says you can check out our YouTube live streams here. If If you click on that, it'll take you to our supplementary live channel on YouTube, because guess what? The main one, they've blocked me being able to do live streams. I don't know why. I can still put videos up there, but there's some hanky-panky going on. All right, let's get Hier Bly Ek Boer on. Have a great evening, everybody. Bye for now.
Meer as 61.000 van ons voorvaders het op die grens vir ons gesterwe, sodat ons vry kan wees. Die is my land, die is my reg, hier is ek boer. Van stof is ek gemaak en sal ek terugkeer. Die Bybel is die woord waaruit ek leer, soos die grond op die aarde. Hier bly ek boer. Soos 'n dief in die nag sal die vyand kom, maar hier bly ek staan en ek draai nie om, want jy maak my nie bang nie. Hier bly ek boer. Die is my land waarvoor ek sal veg. Die is my bloed, my sweet, my reg. Die is die plek waar my voorvaders leef. Die is my land, hoor wat ek jou sê. Die is my land, wat my mense voer. Hier bly ek boer. Soos 'n blaassam in die somer wat vreugde bring. My oupa wat maniekie kon sing, soos hy stap deur die lande. Hier was hy boer. My wortels lê diep in die grond geplant. My seun soos my pa los ek vir jou die land, en jy hoef nie te vrees nie. Hier sal jy boer. My land waarvoor ek sal veg. Die is my bloed, my sweet, my reg. Die is die plek waar my voorvaders leef. Die is my land, hoor wat ek jou sê. Die is my land, wat my mense voer. Hier bly ek boer. Die sal kom. Sal kom, die leeu 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 sal kom.